Hi, everyone. This is Michael Rubino, author of The Mold Medic, and I have a very special guest here on Mold Talks. Her name is Heather. Heather, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Just say a little bit about who you are, anything you want to share.
Hello, thank you for having me on. I'm a mom and a wife that we homeschool, and I'm in our house quite a bit. And I'm just trying to get my health back on track.
Yes, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. You're not an actress, a paid actress to be here today, right? You're here
No,
of your
I'm
own
not.
free
I am
will.
your average housewife, I guess.
Good, yeah. And so I want to dive right into this. I think it's first off, thank you so much for being vulnerable and being here today and sharing your story. And I think it's so powerful the amount of lives that we can touch by showing people this is real and this is what people go through. This is not just made up stuff that I wrote a book about. Like, this is real things that real sicknesses that people go through. So thank you so much for being vulnerable. I know it's not going to be easy to relive some of these moments, but I really value the fact that you're taking the time to do this and speak
Thank
with
you.
me today. When was it that you first noticed you weren't feeling well?
It was about 3 years ago that I started feeling just lousy. You know, something was off, and
Okay.
it was kind of like I went from being okay to not.
And did it happen was it like a flip of a switch, or did it was just such a slow degradation to the point where you're like, okay, wait, this is weird. I don't feel right today as I did 3 weeks ago.
It was almost, I would say slow, but almost instantaneously. I went from feeling fine to kind of like I got hit by a truck.
Okay.
And it was a little nerve wracking, and you kind of start thinking of all bad things.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And then we're going to get into that, like what you went through and some of the psychological effects. And it's going to be really helpful for people to try to connect with, because, it's what's interesting about these exposures is it turns on different symptoms for everyone. So,
Yeah.
that's why we're so fortunate to have you here today, kind of sharing your story with us. So, all right. So 3 years ago, you started not feeling well. You're feeling like you get hit by a truck. And then
Mm-hmm.
let's look at, when did you first realize that mold was something that was a problem for you?
I just recently put two and two together.
Okay. Okay. And so you put two and two together. And if you don't mind me asking, like, how did you put two and two together?
So when I found your channel and you on Instagram, just kind of going through all the symptoms that you have mentioned, and there were, a couple other like practitioners that I have followed. I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe I am not crazy. And that this is actually, the symptoms that I have been experiencing, and, going to doctors and them telling me, well, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know the feeling all too well. I mean, I've spoken to so many people that have gone through that and going to doctor and stuff like that. And it's actually a question that I'm going to have. But, thank you for validating the fact that, sometimes I wonder, am I spending time putting things out on Instagram and out into the public? Is it all worth it? And I think you just highlighted the fact that it is, because I was able to, just with the information I'm putting out there, it sounds like turn on a light bulb that, hey, could it be mold? And so now in hindsight, you're looking at, is it mold in your current place, in your last place, both? How did you connect
We
the
had
dots?
we had mold in our last place when we were in Washington, and it was on the windowsills, and then I think it was downstairs. And I didn't really know much about mold. I thought, oh, it's just, condensation. It's fine. Mold grows. You just wipe it off and that's it. You're done with it. And then we have mold in our now house in Arizona. We have it in our sinks, in our washer, in our shower. Yeah.
Okay, so you've encountered it. You've really had to confront it head on. And once you did, I'm imagining we're going to get to that also. But once you did, that kind of helped kickstart your recovery here. It sounds like, which is great. That's awesome. I mean, so I'm glad that the information I was putting out there had kind of caused these realizations so you can do something about it. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and what I'm grateful for that this work is paying off. So a lot of my clients, they tell me they go from doctor to doctor, or sometimes doctor to doctor. I've had one client tell me almost 200 doctors. I mean, what was that like for you? I mean, how many doctors did you have to go through? And ultimately, it sounds like you diagnosed the problems yourself through the information you were finding on the internet, with myself and other practitioners out there. So, what was that like? Walk me through that.
So it's very frustrating that you trust the medical system, especially I have worked in the medical field for quite a long time. And I went to 3 different doctors in Washington. I went to 3 ER visits. And every single time they would tell me, your blood work is fine. Here's some, like put some saline in me, maybe a little bit of potassium. They're like, okay, send me on my way. And sorry, that was so frustrating. And to not be heard really stinks,
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I can't imagine being gaslit like that. And like I said, thank you for being vulnerable today. And I know this can stir up some emotions, having to relive these things. And thank you for just being so strong and doing that. It's really frustrating what yourself and so many others go through. Yes, you go to a doctor and you expect that you're going to get the answers of why you're not feeling well. And unfortunately, the way our doctors are trained, it's just kind of down this path where it's like, look, if you have symptom A, you take pill B, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there some positives to that way of thought? Sure. I mean, that's why I prefer either integrative medicine that brings both functional medicine and Western medicine together, or other trains of thought that does look and say, there are cases where Western medicine is appropriate.
Oh,
but
100%.
But it's what really upsets me is like the fact that you can go to a doctor, and honestly, when you just look at health, right, you have genetics, predispositions, and environmental factors. Now, I don't care what doctor you are. You should know that those are the 3 things that majority affect people. Why are you not ever looking at environmental exposures is beyond me. I mean, I understand that it doesn't sell pills here, but at the end of the day, if anything you do, any business you have in life, if it's not geared towards helping people, you just shouldn't be doing it. And that's really the simplicity of it. So when I look at this and I see the frustration and, that you've gone through, that so many others have gone through, I mean, gosh, there's got to be a better way. I'm so grateful for the doctors out there that are looking at environmental exposures, that are helping solve problems outside of their own wheelhouse, because I think that's important. So I'm really sorry for what you went through and all that, and I'm sorry that I asked you to relive that. But thank you for doing so.
It's okay. Yeah.
So going back, we have so you had all this frustration. Now, what were some of the symptoms you were feeling? If you don't mind me asking, just to kind of get an understanding.
I had extreme brain fog. I was dizzy. It's almost as if you were looking through glasses that weren't made for you, it was kind of foggy and I was dizzy. And that in itself is very scary, especially when those kind of symptoms are related to other things, and I was having digestive issues. And then I had some breathing problems, but it was, nope, it's allergies, take some of this. Well, no, you need to take some of that. It was just trying to bandage what I was experiencing. But I had really bad anxiety. To the point where my mom even said, you need to get yourself together. Either you need to get on medication, but you're losing it. I'm like, I'm not losing it. Like, I'm experiencing these things. Like, you don't just go from being fine to all of a sudden you're losing your mind, And that was very frustrating.
It brings up a very valid point. I've said this before, and I think this all the time. I wonder if you go down to a psych ward and you take a look at what their environmental exposures are. I think you're going to find a lot of people that are dealing with environmental issues and not mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because it really it can cause these deep dark thoughts, right? Yeah, especially like if you're not feeling well and you can't get answers, right? What are you
Hmm.
gonna what else do you think besides I just want this all to end? Or what else do you think besides, am I ever gonna get better? Like how do you find hope in something when you can't get the answers you're looking for? So, I think that mental health really ties into our physical well-being as well.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling well physically, you're not going to be happy mentally.
No.
And so, I really do strongly believe and suspect that there's a lot of mental health issues that can be solved by looking at the environment as well. And it's very real what you went through, and that now, right? Because you're
Oh,
in
yeah.
that journey for healing, and the way you're thinking now is different than the way you were thinking then at your worst. And so, it's more needs to be said about that. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's really important. Any other symptoms that you'd like to share that are relative for you?
Um, I was, I'm trying to think, I had hair loss. I had a really bad itchy scalp. So if I wasn't itching it to the point where, I was basically losing hair. And only reason why I knew that is I was looking down into my drain. I thought, what in the world? Why am I losing all this hair? Um, so just, I had that. And I'm trying to think, besides like my GI issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks again for all that. And how did it, so besides like just the symptoms, right? And not feeling well, how did it impact your ability just to perform everyday life functions? Was there,
So
was
I'm
there
a
any
mom.
hardship?
Yeah. So I'm a mom to two boys. And at the time I had it was a 7 month old, 8 month old. And my older son was, I think, probably around 6.5, 7 years old. So they're young and they want to keep going and do stuff. And when I wasn't able to perform as a mom, I was dizzy, I was angry, I was frustrated. And when you're dizzy and have brain fog, I just felt like I couldn't do anything. I could barely go for walks with them and play with them, because if I wasn't not feeling well, my anxiety was so bad that I could barely function. And that was extremely frustrating as a mom, to not be able to take care of her kids.
Yeah, and I've met many others in similar situations that have expressed the same sentiment that it was just impossible, right? Kids are
Mhm.
gaining energy, you're losing energy, and it's just the thought of not being able to be there for your kids. It's I can relate as a father, right? Being in that
Yeah.
same circumstance, and it's heartbreaking to see what people go through. I'm so sorry that you went through that, and I'm so glad that you're feeling better now, and
Yeah.
that you're back in action on that road to recovery. But yeah, no, I like I said, I couldn't imagine what that's truly like. Do you remember like the worst day or worst time period that you had? And can you share what that was like?
It was about about 3 years ago, and I can even remember the day of sitting. I was sitting in our chair, looking out the window, and just having a fog. Um, that was probably my worst day. And as far as mental thoughts go, is I thought, what is going to happen to me? I thought, am I dying? And all these thoughts go into your head that are so, they're dark and they're frustrating. And I can just remember sitting there thinking, you're here, but I wasn't there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. You're there physically,
Yeah.
but you feel like you're elsewhere mentally.
Yes.
it just disconnected from the body overall.
Yes.
I could totally understand it, and relate. It's so crazy because I think one of the biggest frustrations that I have as a professional is I see you, I hear you, I believe you.
Hmm.
I have seen too many people go through these challenges. And, when that's why when I hear people say stuff like mold's everywhere, this mold can't be your problem, it's, horse crap, this strikes a nerve for me because,
Yeah.
this is, I mean, this is so real. And,
Hmm.
I want to talk about that for a minute because forget me for a second, right? You live this. And then I would imagine that you've had some people in your life that could not understand what you were going through, that maybe had the mentality that some professionals have in my field.
Hmm.
And, I don't know if you are comfortable sharing some of that, but, would love to hear some of the challenges that you've encountered on your personal relationships that were difficult. And if you were able to convince those people eventually that, this is real. And if not, we're going to show them this video when we're done.
Um, I when I talk to my husband, especially about mold, it's, oh, hun, it's normal. It's supposed to grow in there. It's supposed to grow in the bathroom. It's supposed to grow in this. I'm like, well, it's kind of not, you know. I get that sometimes mold grows, like on food, and I thought the same thing. Like, okay, there's mold on the windowsills. Oh well, that's what it is. We just wipe it off, and treat it, and that's fine. It's gone. And then the sinks and stuff. And when I said, we walked in from being gone for so long, I said, our house smells like mold. He's like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, well, it does. So you, again, feel like you're losing it because, like, am I really smelling this or am I not smelling this?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, like, our bodies are, I mean, works of art, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get this heightened sensitivity when you're around something that's not making you feel well. Your
Yeah.
body acts like an alarm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you start smelling it all of a sudden, it's your body's way of saying, hey, look, there's a problem here. This is what it is. You see that smell
Yeah.
here? And I think the reason why you smelled it and not your husband is I think it was affecting you much differently, in a worse way, of course, than it was
Yeah.
your husband. And he just wasn't really getting that sense of smell with that.
Uh-huh.
Because I've seen people that can smell it from a mile away, and these people are very affected by it. And I think that's kind of why, one person may not feel it as much as another, and these heightened sense of smells and other sensitivities, like your senses just become much heightened because your
Yeah.
body is telling you on that like stimulus response mechanism, hey, look, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So how does he feel now? Does he get it now that you've been through this process and have on that road to recovery?
Um, I think yes and no. I think he's very open to learning more things about
Okay.
certain stuff. I had told him about, like, don't clean mold with bleach because that's what he has always learned to do. He
Sure.
said, no, you just clean it with bleach. And then I showed him kind of the science of when you do the bleach, when you mix it with mold, it creates like a certain kind of gas, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't know that. So he's definitely open to learning more stuff.
Yeah, like it definitely can produce mycotoxins if mold feels
Mm-hmm.
threatened, which bleach can definitely do. But essentially too, you're not actually really removing it just by using bleach. And I think that's the other problem too, is it's just going to come right back.
Yeah.
So you're not solving your true goal. And I wouldn't blame your husband because everyone's been pushing bleach, I think, till the late '90s. So
Yeah.
we're really slow to get the word out, of course. But for 20 years, that's when people started saying, "Hey, don't use bleach." But before that, everyone was like, "Use bleach, use bleach." So it's kind of hard to relearn something
It
after you've been
is.
accustomed to it. So we have that society problem. And I think for the next generation who doesn't probably won't even know what bleach is. I mean,
Yeah, I hope
because
so.
it's become like a thing of the past. So, it's interesting. you're not alone in that. I mean, there's people in my family that have no idea about mold or what to use and things like that. And they'll, if they run into a problem and they're aware of it, they'll ask me. But it's not like people are typically doing research on a problem that they don't think is a problem. So, we have a long way to go to create that awareness, but you're here today and you're helping with that. So I thank you for that. And, we will get through this together and things will start to shape. I can tell you today, as opposed to 10 years ago, when I first really got my foot in the door in this industry, it's night and day different. I mean, there's so much more awareness today than there was 10 years ago. So I'm grateful for that. And, I'm helping every day and everything that I can possibly do to keep pushing that forward. Let's talk about some good stuff, right? So when did you finally start to feel better?
I would say about a year. I mean, started to feel better about a year and a half ago. I just kind of changed. I changed what I put in my body and then what I put on my body as well. And then the stuff around me, I got rid of, like candles. I got rid of artificial fragrances. I really just kind of dove in. I mean, obviously you can't dive in right away, but I started to, we switched our different kind of air filters that we use. So it was kind of like a slow process, but once I started to get rid of the stuff that create bad stuff in the air that we breathe, is that when I started to get better.
Awesome.
And then, yeah,
it's good. These transformational shifts, right? That allow you to go from, kind of increasing every toxicity you possibly can come up with all the plastic we consume and all the chemicals you use, to improving air quality and things like that. When you look at everything from a holistic approach and just make steps towards getting better, even if it's something like just changing out your shampoo and conditioner, to something that's going to be a better for you, right? I mean, these steps that you take are so important. So I'm glad you started doing that. Let me ask, what would you recommend to others who are going through similar challenges, who are maybe in a dark place right now? They're not feeling well, and they're looking for some inspiration. What can you recommend to people to getting better?
Don't give up. Don't lose hope. If somebody is telling you that, you're crazy, you're not. And become your own health advocate, because that's what I had to do. Is when you're failed, that doesn't mean it's the end. It means you need to empower yourself to dig deeper. And that's what I did. And that's what, ultimately really helped, is I became my own health advocate and started digging into the internet. And then I found, your channel and your Instagram. And it's just do not give up and be your own health advocate.
Thank you for that advice. It's very good advice. And I totally agree with you. Don't give up, be your own health advocate. There is nothing that you cannot overcome, no matter how challenging or how dark it gets. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and you just need to, you just need the resources. You need the knowledge. And I think that's why it's so important that, you listen to something like this, to see what others have gone through, what they did to improve their lives, and hopefully something connects with you so that you have the ability to kind of make these small changes, right? Because these small changes lead to big changes.
They really do.
Heather, thank you so much for being here today again. I really appreciate the time you took. Is there any last parting words you want to give, or how do people find you if they ever want to reach out and connect with you and tell you how appreciative they are, anything like that? Please feel free.
Thank you. If, anybody wants to reach out, I'm at crunchy.mama on Instagram. And even if you just need, to talk, I am always there. And especially when I know how it feels to go through this journey and to feel so alone, and you're not alone at all.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Heather. This was great. Thank you so much again. And thank you for sharing your story. It was really important here today. And, for those listening, thank you so much for your time, and helping us achieve this journey of creating the awareness that's so desperately needed. Just thank you.
Thank you.